Another day, another show. We are back, Kane's Corner here to talk about some NBA Finals. We're going to have Mike Buetti, our guest, joining the show very shortly. And then after that, we're going to be going into the LA Dodgers and the recent Clayton Kershaw news. What an exciting day. Make sure you hit the subscribe button to keep along with our show. We have the NBA playoffs coming up. We have the NHL playoffs coming up. We have the NFL draft. Baseball season is finally into action. USFL is starting this Saturday. And sports are back on a tie. I mean, we have Baker Mayfield news. It's a wild week of sports. Joining us now on the show is Mike Buetti. Mike, I have you written down as Cowboys, Celtics, and NBA analyst. So I know those are your two teams. And an NHL analyst too.
Yeah.
That's probably when I'll have you on. So might as well, you can introduce yourself first time on the podcast.
What's up? I'm sure you guys probably already know me. If you know Matt, he does goat chat and stuff like that. You can see the flag back there. That's the podcast we had together. Huge Celtics, Cowboys, Florida Panthers, and New York Mets fan. Yes, I know that's everywhere, but there's a backstory behind all of them. Loyal to all of them since I was very young, but excited to be on the show today and ready to get going and talk some basketball.
Mike, the NBA is really picking up. I mean, I don't know if you saw today. It's filming here on a Friday. Paul George is out tonight.
I just saw that. That's so killer. That is awful for the Clippers, and it's going to make it really tough because the Pelicans are formidable in their own right.
I mean, I will have to see if the Pelicans move on to play the Suns or the Clippers do. Obviously, you'll know tomorrow, but we got to get down to the best game out of so many great games. Don't get me wrong. I think the best game, in my opinion, is the first rounder, Brooklyn against Boston, your team.
Yeah.
With Kyrie and the Boston drama, the star power on each team, Jason Tatum just getting better. We'll talk about that later. You can't get any better. These are two championship caliber teams. Mike, I'm going to start with this. How do you think your Celtics are going to fare against Brooklyn?
The Brooklyn as a team, I don't think they are fantastic. I don't think they are, top 2, top 3 team in the NBA. But whenever you got KD and Kyrie on your side in the playoffs, you're going to be able to win any series possible. But I think in this case, especially with the possibility of Robert Williams returning later in the series, to be honest, I don't think he will. But regardless of if he returns or not, I have the Celtics in this one slightly. I just think that the rest of the team surrounding KD and Kyrie is not going to be enough. Their defense is atrocious, one of the worst in all of the NBA. And we'll get into it a little bit later, but I'm not scared about Ben Simmons coming back, and I don't think he will come back. I think that's just, the Nets throwing something out there just to waste the Celtics time. But I have the Celtics in 6 or 7. I think what Coach Ime Udoka has done for the Celtics this season through the second half has just been incredible. And I just think that the defense plus, the star power on offense, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown always seem to show up against the Brooklyn Nets. And let me tell you, Kyrie is not going to be happy playing at least 3 games in Boston. So I got the Celtics slightly in this one. Obviously, I'd understand why you take Brooklyn, but the Celtics as a team just undoubtedly better in my mind.
I would have to agree with you there, especially how the Celtics have been playing.
Yeah.
I think they've lost 7 games out of their last 36 or something like that.
Yeah, they ever since they were like 23 and 24, or ever since that buzzer beater that RJ Barrett hit against the Celtics. I was actually at that game. That game was insane. But ever since that, pretty much the Celtics have just turned into 5th gear and have become one of the best teams in the NBA, probably the best team since that moment. And even without the presence of Rob Williams, they've still been able to compete, win a ton of games. They couldn't get up to that number 1 seed, but they went out against Memphis in that last game. They said, hey, we don't care who comes into our building. We're going to beat you down. And that's the culture you kind of have to set as a first-year coach in Udoka. and I love it. And I think the Celtics can beat any team in the NBA in the playoffs. But will they? That's still a question to come. I have my questions about that.
I mean, Udoka came into Boston, struggled to begin the year. I actually have it right here, 23 and 24. Went on
Yeah.
a winning streak of well, not a winning streak, but they won 28 out of their last 35 games. He's won coach of the year or coach of the month for February, March, and April. I mean, you have to be happy with him if you're a Celtics fan.
Oh, like it's been a nice first year, 100%. But I think just the future is up and up. And it's kind of weird because Brad Stevens was such a great coach, but I feel like his voice was just becoming kind of redundant. He was losing his control over the players in the locker room. I think Udoka, that new presence coming in, a different style of coach, probably a little bit more intense than Brad Stevens. I like it. And the moves that Brad Stevens has been making, even at the tread line, training for Derek White, getting rid of Schroeder and bringing in Tice, because just for that Robert Williams type backup, Tice has been a good piece back in Boston. I
Yeah,
love what the Celtics are doing, and I think their future is just sky high.
Derek White was a huge move.
Yeah.
Huge move for you guys.
Yeah, even though he hasn't like been shooting the ball like super well, his 3-point percentage has been up after like the first 5-6 games. He played in Boston, but since then up and up for him, and he provides even more defensive toughness, like the Celtics needed. You know what I mean? But with him, we're able to run 2 guard lineups where you're able to switch everything. And I could get into the Celtics defense a little bit later, but I love what Udoka has been doing.
Yeah, I'll switch gears back to Ben Simmons. Mike, you know Ben Simmons was like my favorite player prior to the whole mess last year. But ESPN's Brian Windhorst came out yesterday, said, expect Ben Simmons into this series at least with Game 4. That could change. I know he hasn't gone through 5v5 practices unless it was literally right now today. But you have to think the last time we saw Ben Simmons on the floor was June 20th in an awful Game 7 against the Atlanta Hawks. We spoke about this a little earlier, but what impact do you think Ben Simmons will have if he returns on that Game 4 game?
I just don't think he's coming back. Frankly, I just don't think he's coming back. If he hasn't done 5-on-5 yet, he's not coming back. He hasn't played an actual game of basketball in over a year. And he also had that back issue, which hindered his return to the court and is going to continue to hinder his return to the court. But I think similar to Rob Williams is doing some non-contact basketball drills at full speed. I don't think either come back this series. And even if Ben Simmons does come back, even if some miracle that he returns this series, even though he hasn't been ramped up in the slides, I feel like you need at least like 1 to 2 weeks of 5-on-5 before you step back in the playoffs, right? He's never played with KD and Kyrie. Anyone on this team, for a matter of fact, it would be his first game in a uniform, in the uniform of a Brooklyn Nets jersey, right? If he comes back and steps onto the court, his impact will be minuscule and probably negative in my opinion. That's not me being biased. It's just the fact that he hasn't played for so long and they don't know how they're going to use Ben Simmons yet. He hasn't been on the court, developed any chemistry with them. Is he just going to be a defensive tool in the end? He's just going to be absolute net zero on offense. That's what he was in Philly for in some games in the playoffs. But I don't know how much it helps the Nets if he comes back, and it just ruins everything. It does.
Here's what I think will probably be if he comes back. This will probably be what happens. I think Game 4, they'll bring him into the game. He'll probably play like, I don't know, 18, 20 minutes, 15 minutes. And he'll just be there for defensively, throw him in with at least KD, someone who could score the ball, or Kyrie, whichever is switching them out. He's just going to have a defensive impact. And I mean, I guess pairing him with Bruce Brown on that defense, someone's got to guard Tatum. Someone's got to guard Brown in this series. I could see it. I like Ben Simmons. It was rough. The breakup was rough, but I like him and I like him as a player. We know how great he is on defense. I think he'll just be a defensive tool at this
Yeah,
point. I don't think Steve Nash is, trust me, I love Steve Nash too. He's my favorite player all time. I don't think he's as great of a coach as, like half the coaches in the
yeah,
league.
no,
So if it was a different coach, I'd say Ben Simmons might have a bigger impact than
I agree.
he might this
Mhm.
series if he comes
But
back.
I mean, I feel like it's just another huge piece of the puzzle that the Nets haven't figured out yet. And to begin with, they haven't figured out the puzzle uh, as well. I mean, they were the 7th seed. Obviously, injuries, um, put them in that playing tournament. But it's not like they would have been like a top 4 seed anyways. If they were fully healthy the whole season, right? So I just don't see how Ben Simmons comes in and flips the series on its head. I don't think Ben Simmons is going to be the X factor that a lot of people think he could be. I just think that it's there are too many question marks, and Steve Nash has shown that he's not great at solving those question marks thus far. He's been an okay coach at best. If it was someone like an Eric Spoelstra or Monty Williams, I would have much more faith in them using Ben Simmons correctly. But the combination of Steve Nash's indecisive coaching and just, I wouldn't say porous coaching, but just not up to the level that we expect from such a great player in basketball mind, his level of coaching, and just the fact that he hasn't played basketball in so long. I don't think it's going to pan out for the Nets in terms of Ben Simmons coming back.
I don't know, Mike. He posted on his Instagram story a couple days ago, him with his shoes on the court. Little emoji there. We'll have to see how he does.
I saw a tweet the other day, or like a report that said Ben Simmons is going to return against this series in this series against the Celtics, and his confidence is sky high. He feels like Michael Jordan. I find that truly hard to believe that he feels like that his confidence is sky high and feels like Michael Jordan. Obviously, that's probably an exaggeration and hyperbole, but I just don't think Ben Simmons is that type of player. I don't know if he ever had that confidence. And unless maybe Ben Simmons could come out and shock the world. If he does, starts coming out draining step back 3-pointers, be my guess. I'll bend the knee, whatever. But I don't see that happening. I just don't. Do you think it's gonna happen?
What, Ben Simmons coming out draining threes now?
No. I'm saying if he does come back, like would he be the difference in the Nets winning or losing the series?
I think he can. I don't know if he will
Yeah.
because I don't know what. Listen, if they have Ben Simmons back to drama-free guy who doesn't care what the fans are doing, I mean, last year he was complaining about the Philly fans. I get Philly fans are tough, but Brooklyn fans are probably tough too. So if this guy's right in the, I don't want to say right in the mind because it makes him sound like he's insane, but if he's healthy,
If
I'll
he's
say,
healthy mentally and like uh like stable, like obviously he's not insane. He just was a little reserved on the court. And I think he could be an X factor, like on especially on the defensive side. If he's able to guard up Tatum and like he was last year in Philly, the Celtics are gonna have a tough time, but I don't think it's gonna happen. It's too early for him. It's just too early. He hasn't played basketball in way too long.
sure. I mean, the thing I worry about the Nets with that, if Ben Simmons comes back, is they might be down 2-0. They might be down, or 2-1, actually. They might be down 2-1. They might be down
Yeah.
3-0. So Ben Simmons coming back, I'm not sure how much it's going to do since it's game 4. But let's move on. Mike said we have a podcast. So if you ever have a podcast with your friends, the best part is probably when you get something right. Am I right, Mike?
1000%. Or when someone else gets something atrociously wrong, so you clown them for it.
Yeah, I rode the Bengals train to the Super Bowl. It was pretty much a 3v1 Titans game and Chiefs game. And I even
Mhm.
said prior to the season that they would. But last year, about 10 months ago,
Mike told us this. Roll the clip.
He's solidified himself as a top 15 player in the NBA this year, and I'd argue top 10. So Jason Tatum, 100% biggest snub.
You were confident in it last year, but I have to bring it up again. After this year and how great he's played, how confident are you? Or are you very confident that Tatum solidified a spot in the top 10?
I mean, come on. I said he was top 10 last year. And of course, I'm going to say he's top 10 this year after he's taken another step. I think he's a bona fide top 10 player. And really, if you don't have him in your top 10, I have some reservations about your basketball opinion. Obviously, everyone has their own opinion, but especially in the second half of the year, he's taken a huge step. Currently, I made this list over the past 2 days, because obviously I knew we were going to talk about this on the show. So this is what I currently have. I think there's like a tier one, I would say, where like bona fide superstar, you can undoubtedly win a championship around these players if they're the number one guy. Giannis, KD, Jokic, Embiid, Kawhi, LeBron, Steph, and Luka. That's 8. It really doesn't matter which order you put them in. I'm not going to fight over that too much, but that's 8. I think Tatum goes right after those guys in like his own little tier. Then you have a bunch of guys fighting for that 10 spot. Dame Lillard, James Harden, Devin Booker, John Morant. I really, really, really like Trae Young. I really do. I think he also has an argument given the offensive impact and steps he's taken so far. But I think Jason Tatum is that good of a player.
Mike, are you reading you literally, that's what I have in my notes right now. I'm not joking you. Right now I have for my top 10, I wrote this out. KD, Giannis, Jokic, LeBron, Steph, Luka, Embiid, Kawhi, and then Tatum. And then I have for 10, I couldn't figure it out.
10's tough.
I have Harden / Morant / Booker. And then for just misses, I have AD when he's healthy. I'm not going to throw him in 10. Damian Lillard and CP3.
CP3. Like I legitimately have this right here. You could see what I have, and I think I would probably give it to either Trae, Ja, or Book for that 10 spot, just because they're a little bit younger. But I have some reservations about Ja because of his health, and he's a phenomenal player, no doubt. But I think Trae Young is just an offensive mastermind, and I think he might have that spot. But in terms of Jason Tatum, obviously he got off to a slow start this year, but in the second half of the year, 28, 7.5, 5 assists. That's one thing that I want to point out. His playmaking ability has taken another step up this season, because last season he was getting doubled, and trapped, and a lot of help defense on Tatum, and he wasn't really able to move the ball, out of it. But he's able to now, and really making that extra smart pass. And that's another asset to his game that he's added, and that just makes him more dangerous, because teams know he's going to be able to move the ball to the right guy when the time comes. Also, his impact on the defensive end has been huge for the Boston Celtics. He's one of the best wing defenders in the NBA right now. He's first in defensive win shares, has a bunch of other advanced analytics that show how good of a defender he is. So the fact that he's able to put almost 30 a game on other teams, I mean, since the All-Star break, 20 games, 37-5 on very efficient shooting, probably 50% from the field, and how much from 3-point territory, 40% from the 3 and nearly 90% from the line. That's top 10 player, especially when you put in his defensive impact on the floor. Jason, like, we're at the point right now where you can win a championship around Jason Tatum. That's all I have to say. He's becoming a complete superstar.
I'm interested.
I think he is right now.
I'm interested to see how he does in the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, so far in his career, he showed up in the playoffs. I remember that 50-point game last year against Brooklyn.
Oh
kind
yeah,
of-
I said Boston's gonna win one game because Jason Tatum is gonna score like 50 points or something.
yeah.
Wow.
I mean, that was ridiculous. And the last time the Nets and Celtics matched up, he dropped 50 again. He dropped 50. He outdueled KD. KD had a great game, had 40 plus points, but Tatum had 50 plus points of his own. And I don't think that the Nets have anyone to stop him. They just don't. And you add in Jaylen Brown as well, who's top 25, top 30 player in the NBA as well. The Celtics have something really, really good right here. And so do you think now that
Oh yeah.
Jason Tatum is top 10 player in the
Yeah,
NBA?
he's sitting on 9. I'm taking Booker 10. The only reason why I'm taking Booker 10, I would probably have Ja there if he played the whole season, but we talk how much about CP3 and how great he is, but when CP3 was out, Devin Booker really elevated his play. He averaged 30 points, around 30, and went 56 field goal percentage in March. So that's what's going to push him up. James Harden, don't even get me started about James Harden, but
It's so frustrating because I was such a big proponent of him going to Philly. I still think it's a perfect situation, but
he played great to begin with.
yeah, but it just seems like he does not care about basketball anymore. That's what it seems. The talent is still there. I mean, he's averaging 22 and 10, which is ridiculous, but his shooting splits are god awful. 40% from the field, 33% from 3-point range. If he's able to get that efficiency back up, no doubt he's one of the best players in the NBA. But I don't see the Sixers winning a championship unless James Harden plays more efficiently. And I think after this year, they're going to re-sign James Harden to a max 5-year deal and fire Doc Rivers. That's my prediction, because this Harden, Embiid, plus the rest of the starting lineup for the Sixers
It's not working.
could easily be the best team in the NBA. But as of right now, James Harden does not have the level of commitment needed. And I don't know if Doc Rivers is the right man for the job.
I'm not going to disagree with you there. Mike, we got to get into the big question. Let's get to the pot at the end of the rainbow. Who is your NBA Finals prediction and who's winning?
This is tough. I have the Suns coming out of the West. I was a huge fan of them last year. I had them making the finals, but then I tweaked it to the Clippers making the finals. But I was a big believer in them last year. A lot of people questioned me when I had them beating the Lakers the first round last year. Those people look pretty dumb now, but they've taken they've taken their team to a whole new level this year, and I have them making the finals and winning. Oh yes, it's boring, it's chalky, but if it wasn't for them, I mean, if it wasn't, I think I had either the Celtics or the Bucks coming out of the East. If I had to pick, I'd go with the Celtics. Why not? If the Celtics weren't playing the Nets in the first round, I would wholeheartedly pick them to go to the finals. But I just feel like you're going to have to play the Brooklyn Nets with KD and Kyrie. That's going to be a very tough matchup, right? And then you have to play probably the Bucks in the second round, which is going to be probably your hardest series in the Eastern Conference. Then in the Eastern Conference Finals, you're either playing the Heat or Sixers, which are still two really good teams. And then once you get to the finals, you're battered, you're bruised, you're battle tested, but you're tired. I think the Suns are going to have an easier path to the finals. And once the Suns and Celtics meet up in the finals, I think it's just going to be too much for the Celtics. And I think the Suns are going to be able to beat them.
I agree with the Suns. I got Suns winning. The East is tough because I don't know.
This is very tough. I think it's going to be the Bucks or the Celtics.
See, I don't like picking like the same as last year, but I'm like leaning towards picking the same as last year. Just because the Bucks is a much safer pick than Boston, because Boston, like you said, Boston has to go through Brooklyn, then Milwaukee. But I do think the Heat can coach their way back into, well, Spoelstra can coach his way back into NBA Finals. I'm gonna go with Suns Bucks though. Suns over Bucks this time.
Yeah. I could definitely see that happening. It's tough for me to pick the Heat to make it to the finals. Just, I mean, I have the same concerns I have with them 2 years ago. I think 2 years ago they were really helped out with being in the bubble. I think they were a team made for the bubble, where it was like an open gym. So guys like Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero were able to get hot without like the crowd and stuff like that. And Tyler Hero's no doubt been like the sixth man of the year. Uh, Much improved this year. Huge scoring piece off the bench, but they don't have that number guy still that they can go to and say, I need a bucket, go get me it. They just don't have that right now. And it's a major concern.
What do you think
Uh,
about this? This is probably my upset of the first round. I got Toronto in 7. Kills me to
Over the-
do. Kills me to do, but I think Toronto's gonna win it.
They don't have an interior presence, which I think Toronto could do it, but I just think Embiid is going to be too overpowering. For so long, I've been one of Embiid's like such a huge Embiid fan. You know, I've said it on Go Chat multiple times. I think he's one of the most dominant players in the NBA. I just think Embiid is going to be too much for him. I could see the Raptors winning, but with the Sixers having home court and Embiid, it's going to be tough without Tybal in
Yeah,
Toronto. That's a reason you could pick the Raptors over them. But I think the Sixers will find a way to get it done.
that's
Against the Heat,
no.
maybe we have a different conversation.
I mean, the only way that they're gonna win is Harden and Embiid are hot at the right time. Maxey is playing into his role. Thybul's on defense. It's gonna kill not having Thibault. But the only problem I have is the Raptors really controlled the Sixers this year. I mean, they won 3-1 this
Oh, really?
series, yeah. Without Thibault there in Toronto, I don't know. That's my probably like I wouldn't say hot take because it's not that hot, but that's my
Yeah.
first round
Yeah.
upset.
It's sneaky, 100%. But yeah, I think it's going to be the Celtics or the Bucks. Heat have an outside chance, I guess. Like given they've been there and done it before, and their defense is still pretty good, but it's been up and down throughout the course of the season. But I think the Celtics and Bucks have everything you need to win a championship.
All right, Mike. Before you leave, I have to ask you this question. It's a little off topic, but the Cowboys have made very small moves this past offseason. I've seen people grade it from a D all the way to Skip Bayless gave it a G. So I mean, grade the Cowboys offseason.
I'll give it an A for awful. It was atrocious. It,
All right.
it they they had a conscious mindset of they still have like 15 plus $1 million in cap. They could easily go out and sign someone like Tyrann Mathieu, or they could have used all that money that they signed on like rotational pieces like Dante Fowler and James Washington to go get someone more impactful, like actually get like a superstar player. But instead, they decide to pretty much cut Amari Cooper, and I don't know why you just did it, even though he's still one of the 15 best receivers in the NFL. And then you got lucky with DeMarcus Lawrence taking a pay cut essentially, and then you trade Lyle Collins for a bag of chips, and you didn't even trade him. You cut him. You cut Lyle Collins for nothing. I don't know. They just got worse this offseason. And the thing is they do draft really well. But the problem with drafting really well is that they just become in love with their own guys, and they are so reluctant to sign players outside of the organization. And it's just so frustrating because this is the year to go all in. The Bucks lost a lot of players. Green Bay lost Devontae Adams and some other pieces, right? The Rams, they're still
Biggest competitor.
yeah, they're probably the biggest competitor. They're still a really good team, but even though they signed Bobby Wagner, they lost their defensive tag Joseph Day. Yeah. They lost him to LA. They lost Darius Williams a corner. They lost some pieces that a lot of people don't think. And I think if Dallas went all in this offseason, they would probably be my pick to come out of the NFC, but they're doing the exact opposite. They deliberately got worse. And it just sucks. It really does suck, but whatever. But before you send me off, you think Jason Tatum is a top 10 player in the NBA, right? Do you think Connor thinks that now?
No, I don't know. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. It it's tough. It's tough. I think I
He's
don't
not
know.
a huge NBA fan, so like I don't know.
Mhm.
He probably knows what Jason Tatum's doing.
Yeah.
I can
What
ask him.
yeah, what do you think propelled Tatum into the top 10 for you? What changed between last season and right now?
This
That
hot streak. I mean, this hot streak showed, and obviously they have more pieces than Jason Tatum, but this hot streak showed that Jason Tatum can elevate a team that much, and his performance can get up there. Because honestly, if the season was just that portion of the year, he would be in the MVP conversation
oh yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Even if you just take his second half, not even since the All-Star break, he's in the MVP conversation, no doubt. And he said it. He said, I wish I played this way at the beginning of the season because I get myself an MVP. And I think that's what's going to happen next year. I thought he might have been able to take that jump this year, but I think he's going to have a strong playoffs regardless if the Celtics win or lose in the first round. I think he's going to come back with a replenished mindset, and I think he'll be in the MVP conversation next year. And I'm very excited because he's going to be in Boston for a long time.
I'm not excited for you. Sorry. Mike, I appreciate you coming on. I'm sure we're gonna have you on later. Dallas
yeah.
Cowboys news, Celtics news, some
Stanley
NHL
Cup playoffs.
Exactly. Mike, it's great to see you.
Of course. Peace out. Nice being on.
Always great to have Mike on the show. Mike Buetti. If you don't follow him, make sure you do. Everything he does is great. But baseball is back. You got to love the start of the baseball year. Yankees fans are on cloud nine. They're like, oh, we're making the World Series. They always have the high odds. About time that they just fall off. Give it a few months, they'll fall off. It is what it is. It's the Yankee way. But I was looking in the news yesterday, and this blew up. I mean, Clayton Kershaw pulled in the 7th inning for a perfect game. I'm in sunny Los Angeles. I'm going to a Dodgers game tonight. We have to talk about Clayton, and I'm going to give you my truth and my honest truth and how I see it. Like I said, I'm not a baseball fan. I understand the situation, everything that was going on. He had a perfect game until the 7th inning. It's something that 23 guys have done in baseball. But I think that Dave Roberts made the right decision in pulling Clayton Kershaw. I'll tell you how I would have done it. I would have said, Clayton, it's the 7th inning. You're on track for a perfect game that can easily end in a matter of one batter coming up. Now, I want to pull you for multiple different reasons that I'll get into, but Clayton, I want your 100% truth and honesty, what you want to do, and I'll do it. I would ask Clayton if he said, my intentions are fully to get this feat, I would have kept him in. I said, Clayton, go out there, make us proud. If he said, I understand, coach, and I'm totally fine with that decision, I would have pulled him out. Listen, the Dodgers have historically one of the best rosters in baseball. And I know this. This is me. I'm not a big baseball fan. I know that. I mean, I can probably, it's so wild that I could probably name you the whole starting lineup. All right, so catcher's Will Smith. First baseman, just acquired Freddie Freeman. Second baseman is Gavin Lux. And then shortstop is Trey. Second baseman also could be Max Muncy, but Muncy's a DH, I'm pretty sure, for them. Third baseman, Justin Turner. Left field, Chris Taylor. Center field, Cody Bellinger. Right field, Mookie Betts. Pitching is Walker Buehler, Clayton Kershaw, Julio Urias. Dustin May is hurt. They have Tony Gonsolin, and their relief pitcher is Blake Trinan. Like, that's how great the team is, that someone that doesn't know much about baseball can name that whole roster. I mean, I am aware, I play fantasy baseball. I have a lot of Dodgers on my team, but they historically have one of the best rosters in MLB history, and they can easily win this World Series. And that's what I would tell Clayton. I would tell Clayton, who is an injury-prone player, say, Clayton, listen, I don't want you to get hurt. It's your first start. We didn't really have a spring training. I mean, it was shortened because of the lockout. If you get hurt, that is a huge, huge, huge hole that we have to fill. And with Trevor Bauer, his situation, if he comes back, I mean, Dodgers by a mile. We don't know what's going to happen with him. And I want to push for the World Series. I'm sure you want to push for the World Series. You want something outside the bubble. And if he told me yes, he told me no, I would have went with it. That's my thoughts. It's all my thoughts about Clayton Kershaw. I mean, the story just blew up. I think it blew up for no apparent reason. I think you could talk about so many other things like Baker Mayfield. But hey, I guess I'm a hypocrite because I'm talking about it right here. That's going to end the show today. Trust me, this is just getting better and better. And NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs are coming up. I mean, great play-in tournament games, MLB season starting, NFL drafts coming up. A lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of stuff that will be on with Canes Corner here. Make sure you subscribe, follow us, Instagram. Shout out to Mike Buetti for coming on the show. See you guys next time.